Well, boys and girls, today is the day football is back. It's certainly been a tumultuous 7 months for the New England Patriots. Training camp talk is admittedly not my strong suit, but we will dive into a few things for sure because today is officially day one of the new regime in Foxborough for most fans. I wanted to wait until the preseason game started, but you guys just love your football so much that here we are. Also, a few minutes on the Red Sox today because the next episode will be on MLB trade deadline day. Let's roll.
But I know Tom. Oprah knows Tom.
We couldn't do diddly poo offensively.
Come after me!
Stedman knows Tom.
We couldn't run the ball. We didn't try to run the ball. We couldn't complete a pass. We sucked.
Oprah knows my wife.
I'm not a pessimist. I'm an optometrist.
We're all friends.
Because it's garbage. And the editor that let it come out is garbage. I'm a man. I'm 40.
So why not have a dinner?
53 seconds to go. Bergeron shuts.
But I gotta tell you, it's frustrating as hell to be a Red Sox fan right now. And this is gonna continue until this ownership either changes its attitude or sells the team. Well, welcome to Toronto Dome. And I don't see either one of those things happening anytime soon.
All right.
The Toronto Dome, sponsored by Yeti Microphones. Last week you didn't get to hear my Yeti microphone. Yeah, my apologies for the issues on the show last week, folks. That will not happen again. Welcome into the show. My name is Scott. If you are checking this thing out for the first time, maybe because you don't like other sports and you only like football, people have been clamoring. They've been saying, Scott, when are you going to talk about the Patriots? When are you going to talk about Drake May? Dude, we're going to be talking about football all the way through the end of January into early February, folks. Give it a rest, will you? But here we are, and here we go. Of course, New England-based show, so we're going to be focusing on the New England Patriots here, folks, and that's where we are going to go today because it is day one of 2024 season training camp. And of course, a lot of things have changed over the last several months. For example, there's a new head coach in town for the first time after 24 years, 6 championships, 17 division titles, 9 conference titles, a 30-12 playoff record, and 266 overall wins. But it was probably time for Bill Belichick to go, especially after some of the decisions that have been made, really personnel-wise more than anything. I still think that Bill can coach. I think he will coach again in the NFL, but the personnel decisions were too much, and it definitely put the team in the position that it's in now, so it was probably time for a change, plus the fact that the owner's son absolutely hated him, probably because he, I don't know, like called him a bad word or something, because that's how trust fund babies are. But that's neither here nor there. Bill Belichick gets one more run as a head coach in 2025, I believe, folks. Most likely will be in a bigger market, otherwise he won't bother. Dallas, Buffalo, and Philadelphia all seem like possibilities to me, depending on how the 2024 season goes. I'm definitely skeptical of Gerard Mayo as head coach of this team, by the way. Definitely skeptical. And he's not that much different than Belichick in terms of the way he speaks. Anyway, he gives you more of nothing, but he's still giving you nothing. And we'll get back to him in a bit. I've got a clip of him that actually just came out yesterday that you should probably hear. We will play that. It has to do with the quarterback rotation. I'm going to be a little bit all over the place in this one, guys. Training camp stuff is really not my forte, but we're going to talk about some things that we can look for as far as developments in camp this year. And of course, it's day one, so a lot of this stuff is subject to change. But for all the criticism and hatred towards Bill Belichick, his former assistant GM, Elliott Wolf, is now the guy in charge of player personnel, and he apparently liked a lot of Bill's instincts because the Patriots' offseason primarily consisted of re-signing their current players. So why don't we go over those now? Their own free agents that they signed. The biggest one is Mike Onwenu, the guy who can play guard and right tackle. They gave him 3 years, $57 million, with $36.5 million of that guaranteed. They also brought back wide receiver Kendrick Bourne coming off a blown ACL. They gave him 3 years and $19.5 million. Outside linebackers, Anthony Jennings got 3 for $12. Josh Uche, 1 year for $3 million. I like that deal a lot. And Jalen Reagor, a guy who is, I believe he's on his 4th team now, came over from Minnesota as a free agent during the season last year. They gave him 1 year and $1.3 million to come back. But now let's get to the extensions. This is where they really show how much they liked Bill's guys. So here we go. Biggest money contracts in order. Christian Barmore, who I love. Absolutely love Christian Barmore. He's a difference maker in the middle of the defensive line. They gave him 4 years and $83 million. But folks, these are the NFL contracts. They're not guaranteed. At least never. They are never fully guaranteed unless you're a quarterback. And even then, it's rare. Ask the Cleveland Browns how that's working out with Deshaun Watson, by the way. But Barmore gets 4 for $83, but only 31.8 of it is guaranteed, and $18 million of it was in a signing bonus. So I guess really it's more like $49 million is guaranteed, right? The language of the contract is always interesting. Next biggest money deal, Kyle Duggar, built a former first-round draft pick of the Patriots in 2020. That one worked out pretty well. Actually, I think he was a second-round pick. He was a second-round pick, early second round. They didn't have a first-round pick that year. Deflategate BS. Kyle Duggar gets 4 years, $58 million in extension, $29.5 million guaranteed. Like Duggar on the back end, he gets better every year. Definitely like Kyle Duggar. Next up, this one made me scratch my head a little bit. Ramondre Stevenson. Now listen, I like Ramondre Stevenson. I liked him a lot more 2 years ago at this time than I do now. But he got 4 years, $36 million. $17.1 million of that guaranteed. Stevenson's a guy whose success is largely contingent upon the offensive line being good. We'll get into the offensive line later because I'm not convinced that the offensive line will be good for this team. But Stevenson gets a 4-year deal. Interesting. But okay, fine. I can live with that. And then you sign your top tight end, Hunter Henry. You bring him back at 3 years, $27 million. He'll be 30, or I believe he is 30. I don't have a problem with that. A little bit injury prone, sure, but he is a legitimately good pass catching tight end. $15.8 million of that is guaranteed to Henry. And then next up, you've got Jelani Tavai, linebacker Jelani Tavai. He's a sneaky good player. Sneaky good player. Definitely like him a little bit. You know, a lot of these defensive guys Bill hit on. I mean, you know, you kind of see that here. But 3 years, $16 million for Tavai, $9 million guaranteed. Not an amazing player, but, you know, a guy worth keeping around. And then your captain, David Andrews, your center of the offensive line, guy who's been here for seemingly 10 years now, gets 2 years, $12 million, $8 million guaranteed. Probably his last contract as a professional. He'll retire in New England. So, let's see. We just went over your own free agents that you re-sign, and there were 5 of them. I just named 11 players for you. So I guess they don't mind Bill's personnel decisions that much, do they? But anyway, other guys making the decision now, I guess. Now let's talk about who they added that wasn't on this team last year. Because the Patriots, of course, brought in some free agents. Didn't really make any splashes. No big home run hitting splashes in free agency. And by the way, the Patriots still have the second most cap space in the NFL as of today. Still have the second most cap space, I believe. That's according to Spotrac. It's either the first or the second most. It's over $40 million in cap space. Here's in order of how they were paid. First, they got Antonio Gibson. Fantasy football players will know who Antonio Gibson is. That's most of you listening right now. Gibson, 3-year deal worth $11.25 million, 5.3 of that guaranteed. I like this one a lot. Gibson isn't injury prone, but he may not play all 17 games for you. This is a really nice change of pace to Ramondre Stevenson. Now, Stevenson can catch the ball out of the backfield, but this guy specializes in catching the ball out of the backfield. Not so much a between the tackles kind of running back, a little bit of a smaller guy. But I like Antonio Gibson at this price in this role for this team. I think that's a good move. The next one is QB Jacoby Brissett. Now, of course, if you don't pay attention to the rest of the league, you maybe wouldn't even realize that Jacoby Brissett was still in the league. But this is a former third-round pick of the Patriots, and he is back. It's a 1-year, $8 million deal. That's for him to keep the seat warm, and that one's pretty obvious to all of us. That signing was made before the NFL draft, and we all kind of knew what that was. So, $6.5 million of that guaranteed to Brissett. Backup quarterbacks make that much money too, guys. That's a good gig if you can get it. Really is. So Brissett's here. We'll obviously get back to that in a little bit. Now, a few more names on this list. I went with the 6 highest paid free agent signings. They did have a couple other smaller moves. Next highest signing on the list is a linebacker named Sion Takitaki. Takitaki. He's not Asian. He's over from Cleveland on a 2-year deal worth $6.645 million. Interesting player. Not a pass rusher, but an interesting player. KJ Osborne, a wide receiver from Minnesota, who they actually cut, but I don't think that they cut Osborne because of a lack of talent. I think they cut Osborne maybe as an oversight, but also with the fact that they have 2 legit elite wide receiver ones in Minnesota, and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison is a guy that likes to drive drunk. It's okay, NFL players get away with it, no problem. It's really not a great thing, but they get away with it. So I like Osborne for a year and $4 million. I think this could be an impact signing, especially at that price. That's good value. But we'll talk about him in a little bit too. And it's just a second. Back to Taki, by the way. Taki. Anytime I can say that name this season, I'm going to do it, just so you know. So, good luck to all of you. But anyway, and then we'll get back to Brissett as well. There's a clip I need to play of Gerard Mayo, and my cat's going to make an appearance in the episode, apparently, which is always nice. Like, I have time for you right now. Yep, go ahead. Just walk right across the keyboard, you jackass. Anyway, now that I got him out of the way, Taki. In 2023. 7 starts in 2023. 65 combined tackles, a couple of sacks, and an interception. I mentioned Osborne was cut by Minnesota due to that overcrowding. In 2023, Osborne, 48 catches, 540 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he showed more promise in the 2 seasons prior. 2021, 50 catches, 655, and 7 scores. And in 2022, 60 catches, 650 yards, 5 scores. Kind of interested in what he can do. They also went and got another guy with a great name, an offensive tackle, Chukwuma Okorafor. Chukwuma Okorafor. Sorry, that's my own. That's just me. Don't mind it. He started all but 1 game for the Steelers as an offensive tackle. I'm not sure which position, to be honest with you, or is he a guard? No, he's a tackle. Started all but 1 game for the Steelers from 2022 to 2020. Right, sure, we'll go with that. And in 14 games and 7 starts last season. And then they also signed Austin Hooper. Now, you've heard that name before. He's been around. This is like his 5th team overall and his 4th team in the last 5 years. He's a role player. He hasn't been a prominent pass catcher in 5 years. He's a good blocking tight end. And he will have a role on this team to play for sure. This is a team that clearly plans to run the football. So we'll go there. So we've been over the free agents. We've been over all the guys that they re-signed. And now we have to turn, of course, even further back to the NFL draft. And the cat is still sitting on the desk right next to the monitor here, and I'm not convinced that he won't be making more noise. So that's always good. He's usually a good cat, but he's a nosebag. I mean, anyone that has cats knows they're friggin' nosebags. But let's focus on the 3 most impactful, potentially, picks in the NFL draft for the New England Patriots. Now, of course, the biggest name and the most important one is who they took at number 3 overall. That's Drake May out of North Carolina. Big kid, big arm, smart kid. And we'll play a clip of him in just a second, being very smart on camera. And it's actually Hard Knocks New York Giants offseason edition where they interviewed Drake May. I believe the Giants desperately wanted to trade up to get him, but the Patriots would not trade the pick. Anyway, let's go back to Mays. I'm a numbers guy. Let's do some stats. Last 2 seasons at North Carolina for Drake May. your future quarterback of the New England Patriots, folks. Pay attention to this stuff. This is the ACC, but still, let's check it out. May's last 2 seasons, but he was basically, most of these guys don't start 4 years in college anymore, right? At least not the good ones. I don't have time for fantasy baseball questions right now. Go away. May went 16-10 in his last 2 seasons as a starter. Completed 64.8% of his passes, 611 out of 942. Had just under 8,000 yards at 79.29 in those 26 games. That's 305 yards per game average. He threw 16 interceptions and 62 touchdown passes, which is a 4-to-1 ratio, or just under 4-to-1. He had 8.4 yards per attempt over those 2 seasons, and he had 9.0 air yards per attempt. So this is a kid that was the kid that likes to throw the ball down the field. By the way, the kid can also run. In those 2 seasons combined, he had 296 rushing attempts, 1,147 yards, and 16 rushing touchdowns. Now, on tape, he can make pretty much every throw, and he's got a big arm. And as it turns out, he's pretty damn smart, too. Take a listen to this.
Gundolphin right.
Gundolphin right, 72, Tundra, float, H angle.
Gundolphin right, 72, Tundra, float, H angle.
Yeah, so Tundra stands for what?
200.
200, and what does float stand for?
It's got the corner of the out.
Flag. We call it a flag, so
Okay.
we end up saying corner flag, but it's flag.
the
So
out,
flag, and the angle is an angle. You got me on that?
Easy stuff.
And you use Rita to the right, Linda to the left. There was a flip formation. Good?
Rita to the right, Linda to the left.
72, 5-man protection, slide to the will. So if the strength of the formation is right, what formation is that again?
Yeah, Gundolphin right.
Yeah, right. He's there. The will's over there. The line would slide there. We'd say 72 Rita.
72 Rita. Gotcha.
So basically what you just heard there is a kid that was ahead of the head coach of the New York Giants in terms of breaking down and diagnosing plays. Pretty cool stuff, if you ask me. And it's clear why the Giants wanted this kid, because I guarantee you that Daniel Jones can't do what he just did that quickly. Just watch Daniel Jones play the quarterback position. Never mind the fact that he can't throw the ball. But anyhow, so smart kid. The consensus being on Drake May is that he still has to clean up his footwork quite a bit. But given the raw talent and the mental acumen that this kid has, it probably won't take him too long to figure that stuff out. Now, I'm not going to say that I don't have concerns about this. I'm never a 100% either way guy. It's hard to be 100% either way because usually I end up with egg on my face. But I believe he's got all the tools to do it. Be a success in this league. Be a really good quarterback potentially. But there is a little bit of a concern, and it's the pressure of big games because he struggled with this at the University of North Carolina. For example, in the 2022 season, which again, his first season as a starter in college, but he lost his final 4 games all in a row. During those 4 games, he only completed 57% of his passes, had 2 games with no touchdown passes, and threw 4 interceptions in that span. The losses were to Georgia Tech, NC State, Clemson, and Oregon. Now, NC State, big rival. Clemson and Oregon were definitely better teams. Georgia Tech should have been a W. Now, in 2023, Drake May lost 4 of his final 6 games. Once again, lost to Georgia Tech, Clemson, and NC State were 3 of the 4 losses. Now, I'm not saying that he can't succeed with age and experience. Certainly he can. But every game in the NFL is a big game compared to ACC football. Now, the big question of the year is when does he get the starting job? When the draft happened, I thought it would be a full year wait for him. I still think it's possible. But it's starting to seem very unlikely at this point. And if you don't believe me, then listen to your new head coach, Gerard Mayo, on the subject. Here you go.
I mean, coming out of the spring, I don't think there's any doubt Jacoby is the starting quarterback at this point in time. I mean, we can look at these other quarterbacks on the roster. At the same time, like it's about competition. And so when we get out on the field this summer with the pads on, we'll see how it all plays out. But, coming out of the spring, I think it's clear that Jacoby is the most pro-rated guy we have. He played a lot of football. look, if Drake, and this goes to any position, if he comes out here and he lights it up, and once again it goes back to the quality of reps, it could absolutely happen. Like I sit here and tell you, like coming out of the spring, Jacoby looks like the starting quarterback. Now, with that being said, he'll have competition. There's competition. Like, let's not forget about even Joe Milton. Let's not forget about Zappy. All those guys will have opportunities to go out there and be the starting quarterback in week one. Not at all. Like, I think this is, I mean, you've seen that work in the past, right? You look at, other quarterbacks, the Green Bay quarterbacks, right, where they had a lot of time to, I don't know if I was allowed to say his name, but you look at those situations and, they were able to sit back. There are also been situations where a guy comes right in right now and he balls out, and, we'll see what happens when we get out here on the field.
So I hope you all enjoyed that minute and 15 seconds of absolutely nothing that he just gave you there, but I'll try and dissect it for you anyway. Basically what he's telling you is the plan is that Jacoby Brissett is the starter in week one for this team. Now, he likes to also say the phrase balls out, which if you just isolate those two words, it sounds very funny to me, but that's neither here nor there. Let's get back to the subject matter. I'm not sure that Drake May can really do anything to actually get this job in week one. But having said that, then in the second part of that, I cut out the question from the reporter there. I think it was Tom Curran that asked the question. But Mayo basically the question was, would you be opposed to making him sit for a year if that needed to be the case? And then that's why Mayo brought up the Green Bay quarterbacks and how they had success with Aaron Rodgers and with Jordan Love doing the same thing. Rodgers sat behind Favre for almost 3 years, and Jordan Love sat behind Rodgers for almost 3 years. So I don't see that happening with Drake May because this is a new coaching staff, this is a new general manager, and this is an organization that wants to get back to the success that they had. I'm not sure that they know how to do it, but that's what they want. So when the draft happened, I thought for Drake May, this kid, that it would be a full year of a wait for him. That's what I thought. And I still think it's possible, but to me now it seems unlikely. It does seem unlikely because I think it's a very plausible scenario that the team can start poorly under Jacoby Brissett. Let's say a 1-4 record or a 2-5 record. That is certainly possible. I think Drake May gets a chance to start if it's like that. Because at that point, there's really no pressure on the kid to win. We know we're not going to be a playoff team, which they should know they're not going to be a playoff team. By the way, you can still get the Pats at under 4.5 wins here in Sportsbook, Rhode Island. I believe it's the same everywhere else. I think I'm going to confidently bet the over on that because it's not a lot of wins. I think they're a win or two better than they were last year. I think they could go 6-10. I'm 6-11, I think. But plenty of time to talk about that later. Just saying, might throw a couple $100 on that, no big deal. But trust me on this one, they do not have a favorable schedule. So 1-4 or 2-5, and we'll do the schedule thing, and we'll pretend we know what they're going to win in friggin' August, when the games are in January. We'll talk about that later. I'll probably have Nate back on for that so he can say they're going to go 12-5 again. But anyway, team just went 4-13. You would think they'd have a favorable schedule. They do not. So we talked about Drake May. They also drafted 2 wide receivers that I think could really be impact players, believe it or not, in this draft. Belichick's not here anymore. The people who the scouting department told Belichick to take, Belichick often ignored. Probably his greatest weakness as a general manager was that he would listen to his friends instead of his scouting department. And that happened a lot, and we know it happened a lot. This year, in the draft, 37th overall, they take a wide receiver named Jalen Polk. Polka time. Out of Washington. One of those Washington receivers that I wanted them to draft. I liked Rome Odunze a little bit better, but Polk's a big play guy, and he honestly looks like he could be a number one receiver in the NFL. Last season for Washington, 69 catches for 1,159 yards and 9 touchdowns. Jalen Polk averaged 15.6 yards per catch for his college career. He's more of an explosive big play guy than a possession guy, but he certainly gives them the potential X-receiver threat that they haven't had since, I gotta be careful, but Randy Moss, maybe. At least Malcolm Mitchell. Polk with a 4.52 40-yard dash and a 37.5-inch vertical. Simply put, he can go up and he can get contested throws. Now, the Pats have plenty of possession and smaller receivers in the room already, and we'll talk about that position battle in just a minute here. But I want to talk about the other explosive, big play threat wide receiver that they got. And they got him later on, and I think it's because of character questions, but I like this kid's character. Javon Baker out of UCF, University of Central Florida, at 110 overall. This kid could be a huge steal in that spot. He's another big play threat, like I just said. Last season for UCF, not a team known for its offense, 52 catches for 1,139 yards. That's 21.9 yards a catch. 7 touchdown catches. A 5.54 40 and a 37-inch vertical. And interestingly enough, both Baker and Jalen Polk both measure 6'1 and 203 at the draft combine in April. This is a player that I personally desperately want to pan out in the NFL. He's got some insane yak ability, yards after catch. Go look up his highlight reels on YouTube. And he also said, after he was drafted, first, official press conference phone call for the Patriots. This is what he said after he was drafted, and I'm not kidding. And I quote, "Bring your popcorn. I make people in wheelchairs stand up. Let me try this again. I'm unapologetically not politically correct." So as soon as I heard that, I said, yup, love this kid. Love this kid. Those 3 players, to me, really highlight the draft for the Patriots. I think you either just gave yourself 3 building blocks, or you're going to be in the same exact spot in a couple years that you're in right now. That's how long it's going to take to find out. A couple years. Now, all this potential excitement, all of this high-end rookie talent I just told you about, none of this can be realized without addressing the offensive line. Now, they did a couple of things. I mentioned the tackle that they got from Pittsburgh in free agency. Hopefully this is enough. I'm not sure it is. But they took a right tackle out of Penn State named Caden Wallace at 68th overall in the draft. He grades out as above average, at least in college. But you had an opportunity to take. You could have traded back up into the first round. You could have gotten a better tackle than this, but we'll see. He was a right tackle, not a left tackle. Team still needs a left tackle as of today, folks. They also took a guard named Layden Robinson, 103rd overall out of Texas A&M. They have a ton of guards. They don't need any more guards. We already mentioned that they kept Mike Onwenu. Questionable to pay that guy $19 million a year, but he is their best offensive lineman. They also kept David Andrews, their captain, and their center. We also mentioned the Okafor deal, as I said. They signed another guard in free agency, Nick Leverett, a 5th-year pro from Tampa, to a 1-year deal worth less than $1.5 million. So I think we're okay at guard and center. I think they expect this rookie out of Penn State to be the right tackle. So who is protecting the blind side of these 2 quarterbacks? Now, Gerard Mayo did mention Joe Milton and Bailey Zappi, but let's be real. Come week 1, Bailey Zappi's not on this roster. And good riddance, by the way. Doesn't take long, does it? Remember Zappy fever? We all had it. That's how bad Mac Jones was, guys. Have fun in Jacksonville, Mac. Anyway, it looks to me like they're counting on a couple of guys. One of them being Calvin Anderson, who was a free agent signing coming over from Denver before last season, and he missed all but 5 games, and he only started 2. Prior to coming to New England, Anderson played in 41 games for the Broncos and only started 12. He was re-signed to a 1-year deal worth $2 million. Having everything... hold on. Sorry. Perhaps it'll be City So. Serp du City So. Not so sure about that one. But maybe he gets a crack at left tackle. I don't know. A 4th-round pick who played quite a bit last year, but it was mostly at guard. And Cole Strange is still around, by the way, but he's still hurt. Don't think he's going to start the year on time. So I'm still not confident in this line. If you don't have a left tackle, you don't have that much. So none of these names inspire confidence. I have a feeling the offense is going to struggle behind a below-average offensive line again. But But it's obviously only day one of training camp, folks. Trades and other acquisitions can happen. And I think that unlike in past years, at least this new regime here is probably willing to make some of those deals. And again, they still have a ton of cap space. So let's not panic just because it's day one of camp and this is what it looks like. We're not panicking. I'm just saying, if this is all they're going to do, the offense is probably going to struggle again. Just saying. So, one more thing I want to talk about today, because we're at about a half hour now. But one more thing I want to talk about that we can really focus on here in training camp is definitely the position battle at wide receiver for your New England Patriots. There's plenty of questions to go around here. Now, guys that have NFL experience that are already on the roster include Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, KJ Osborne, who we talked about, Jalen Reagor, Tyquan Thornton. By the way, Juju Smith-Schuster's still here too. Kayshon Boutte, the gambling man, but all charges were dropped. And Kawan Baker, who's a special teams guy that came over from the Saints. But the thing about this, I mentioned him because he's going to end up getting a spot on the roster. He's the new Matthew Slater. So then we talked about Javon Baker and Jalen Polk. Those guys are draft picks. That's 8 now. They also have a couple of undrafted free agent signees, Jaquay Jackson out of Rutgers, and another guy named David Wallace, who's an undrafted free agent out of Randolph-Macon. Not a clue where that is. Couldn't even find stats for him online. I looked. So, let's say those last 2 guys don't make the team. That's still 10 more wide receivers. They aren't all going to make the roster, guys. It's not going to happen. Now, I think both rookies make it. They both got pretty good deals, especially Polk, who was drafted just after the first round. So those 2 are going to make it. I assume 2 guys are going to get cut, maybe 3. If it's 2, don't be surprised at all. I mean, if you've watched this team last year, you know Juju Smith-Schuster has nothing left in the tank. Nothing. And he gets hurt every other play that he's on the field, practically. At least every other game. Don't be surprised if Juju Smith-Schuster and Tyquan Thornton are the 2 that get cut. Tyquan Thornton is a typical Belichick home run, reach, bust wide receiver. Thornton had 1 game where he had 2 touchdown catches. He's shown big play ability, but he doesn't know how to play the position, and he's too small. Period. Now, if 3 guys end up getting cut, well, then I think Jalen Reagor's out myself, because Jalen Reagor doesn't do enough as a pass catcher. Famously, of course, Jalen Reagor was the guy that the Philadelphia Eagles selected 1 pick before the Minnesota Vikings took Justin Jefferson. That is what Jalen Reagor is known for at this point. Worse than Aguilar ever was is Jalen Reagor. Cheap money, half of it's guaranteed. They would only eat $500,000 to cut him. It could happen. Do they keep 7 receivers? Probably. Now, Kendrick Bourne is starting at least training camp on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list, but I think he's got a good shot to be ready for week 1. So the position battles are interesting. And of course, there's also been news that's been floated out there in the last few days that the best receiver for the San Francisco 49ers, I'm sorry, he's better than Deebo Samuel as a pure receiver. Brandon Ayuk wants a new contract, or he wants to be traded. And I believe that the 49ers will do neither of those things. I don't care what you have to give up. If you're the Patriots, give up the 2nd round pick to get him. Do it. Do it right now and sign him. That's a true number 1 for your future, hopefully stud quarterback here. That's a move I would love to see the Patriots make. And there's probably about 8 other teams in the league that would love to see it happen too. So the receiver battle, definitely one to watch. We've covered a lot of training camp stuff here, folks. I'm actually going to be going up there on Friday myself. So maybe I'll have a report for you sometime next week. Because the next episode we do is actually going to be an MLB trade deadline special for you folks. I'm sorry, but July 30th is the MLB trade deadline. That's next Tuesday. I will have Dave Mullen back in the house and perhaps one more guest, Perhaps. As long as I can figure out the mic situation. Kind of messed that one up last week, but that's okay. It's okay. It was still a good episode. It was a very good episode. My guests were great. I think that I was the weakest member of the show that episode, but that's a good thing. So, since we mentioned the baseball trade deadline, I have one more chance to make a plea to the Red Sox and to possibly rip them because that's what I do. But let's go to the Red Sox. And this will wrap up the show, of course. The Red Sox entered the All-Star break at 53-42 through 95 games. They absolutely crushed expectations. Mine included, because I took them at under 79.5 wins, and I threw $100 on it. So I'm not going to get that bet back, folks. They're going to win at least 80. I'd say at least 80 games, even if the team does nothing like they've done the last 2 years at the deadline, and then they fall flat on their ass. Even then, they will still win more than 79 games. Jarren Duran wins the All-Star Game MVP. Whee! Oh, yeah! Awesome! Jarren Duran. It's a great story. It really is. I don't give a crap about the All-Star Game, unfortunately, because it used to mean something, right? And by the way, let them wear their own team's uniforms, you idiots. What are you doing? They're worse than the City Connect uniforms, for Christ's sake. But anyway, we don't have time to do this right now. Immediately following the All-Star break, the Red Sox get swept by the Dodgers. All 3 games winnable. Bullpen's a problem. Then they go and lose the first game in Colorado to a very bad Rockies team. Now, they won last night, but we're now 6 days away from the trade deadline. It certainly feels different this year. It feels like this team is going to make a postseason push for the first time in 3 years and actually add at the deadline. But why do you need to wait until the final day? Team needs help right now. You need help now. You don't need to wait until a day or two before or literally an hour before the deadline. You can make moves anytime during the season, Craig Breslow. And I know you know this, Mr. Harvard. I know you know this. So are they really going to do something? And you can hear it in my voice. You hear me starting to get pissed now. Because it just reeks of John Henry not wanting to spend money. Again, what are you waiting for? Still praying they might lose the next 5 in a row up there in the front office? Are we still being this cheap? This team has shown you enough that they deserve the help. They all know they need it. The manager is managing over his friggin' head again. You want any chance of keeping him here? You add to this team. You add to this team now. I'm not 100% convinced that they will. Not even close. Your players deserve it. Your manager deserves it. But if they do, they won't be big moves. They won't be big. Because they're not going to, the Red Sox won't part with any of their top prospects. They have 3, in my mind, they have 3 elite prospects. They're all position players. Catcher Kyle Teal, first-round pick last year. Marcelo Meyer, 4th overall pick in 2020. And Roman Anthony, an left-handed hitting outfielder. None of those guys are going to move. None of them will move. Won't happen. And I don't blame them for that. Because that would go against everything that you've been building up for the last several years now. But they're hoarding hitting prospects. They have a ton of guys that can hit in the minors. And a lot of them are infielders. And you're going to have a logjam. Now that hurts you in trade leverage. But you can do something about this. By the way, your left-handed hitting first baseman, one of your best hitters, hasn't been around since the end of April. Hasn't been around, and you're still this good. There's still no timetable on a return for Tristan Casas. You need a right-handed first baseman, at least somebody that can play first base. One of those kind of hitters. You can have, it's not, like I said, they won't be big moves. It'll be unsexy, but it'll be sensible options, like a reunion with Justin Turner, who was here last year, was very good here. Maybe a guy like Juan Yepez from Washington, another solid bat, a lot younger than Turner. Not an amazing player, but somebody that can help you now and is a respectable right-handed bat. Mark Canha, who's in Detroit, also can play first base and fits that bill. Or even a reunion with a guy like Hunter Renfroe. I really hope they don't do that. I think Renfroe's totally cooked. but I could see them doing something like that. In addition to a right-handed bat, the Red Sox also desperately need a starting pitcher and some relief help. Back into the bullpen, not as reliable this year as it has been the last couple of years. That was their strength for the last couple of years. Now, starters that are going to be on the market, or at least could be on the market, that the Red Sox won't go for because it's going to be way, way, way too much to give up, include Terry Skubal and Jack Flaherty of the Tigers and Garrett Crochet of the White Sox. Price is going to be too high on those guys. Here's a list of guys that I came up with that are definitely more attainable for Boston and I think could be available, but this is just me. This is just me on this one. A couple guys from the Rays, Zach Littell, Zach Eflin. Chris Bassett from the Toronto Blue Jays. I would really like that one. Eric Fetty from the White Sox. I'd like that too. Nate Eovaldi, John Gray, and Max Scherzer from Texas. Now, if you're thinking, well, Scott, Scherzer makes a ton of money. Actually, he doesn't make that much in Texas because the Nationals and the Mets are paying most of his money. So Scherzer would be really interesting. That would be really cool, I think. I know he's 40, I realize that, but he can still pitch. Also came up with Tyler Anderson of the Angels, Trevor Rogers, Braxton Garrett, and Edward Cabrera of the Miami Marlins, Frankie Montas of Cincinnati, an old friend Martin Perez in Pittsburgh, Jameson Taillon with the Cubs, Robbie Ray with the Giants, although my buddies didn't think that the Giants would be sellers, and I'm starting to think they may be right. And finally, Cal Quantrill of Colorado. Now, there's definitely some interesting and exciting names there, a couple old friends and a bunch of meh. We'll see. The team desperately needs it. We'll see if they address it. Surely there are going to be more starters out there that I didn't just mention, but I threw a bunch of names at you. Just something to keep an eye on. The relief market's always a toss-up, but the Red Sox need to add here too. We know that Miami will likely trade Tanner Scott, the best reliever available on the market most likely, and possibly A.J. Puck. Both of them are lefties. The Red Sox desperately need help in terms of left-handed pitching in the bullpen, but both of those guys would command a pretty steep price. Cincinnati also reportedly willing to trade Penn Arms. Sorry, I'm getting gassed here. I like Lucas Sims. He's a righty. And Fernando Cruz. Now, their stats aren't that good this year, although Cruz strikes a million people out. If they have a chance to work with an actual pitching coach like Andrew Bailey here with the Red Sox, those guys could be sneaky, and they wouldn't cost you very much. But there's more to come on trade deadline day. Like I said, Dave Mullen will be back in the house. We'll be recording at 4:30 p.m. that day, so it'll be a little bit later in the day for that episode. Gonna wait until all the deadline deals come out and we have a chance to react to it. Should be a lot of fun. And we may have one more guest for that one. I'm working on it. I don't think Nick's going to be able to make it this time. So, might have my buddy Josh on the show. We'll see. But we're going to have a good time. That's our next show, folks. Thank you for sticking with me for almost 45 minutes on this one. I had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it too. Plenty to keep an eye on with the Pats in training camp. Next time we talk about football, we'll definitely do a little bit more around the league stuff because the NFL is a constant news machine. So there will be plenty more to talk about coming up. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe, follow, do all that stuff. By the way, last note, the show is getting a much-needed facelift, folks. We're going to be getting a new logo, and I've also got some social media stuff in the works, and I'm getting professional work done on this. It's not going to be just me. Not my strong suit. So, anyway, exciting times to come, folks. Thank you very much, and we will talk to you later. Have a good one, everybody.